Hello. Welcome to Coaching for Coaches. I'm your host, Miles Grant, founder of Certified Elite Performance Coaching. I hope this finds you well. On today's broadcast, we'll be talking specifically about pricing, do's and don'ts. I'm going to share with you some really common sense, but not necessarily common practice things to consider when you're pricing your life coaching, personal training, business coaching, frankly, any type of coaching practice. I'm going to share with you some things that I've learned about pricing. If you're here and you're here live, then drop a yo in the comments so that I can see that you're here. Your comments will pop up. Also, feel free to drop a question in as well. If you have a question, then that will pop up in the chat. It'd be great. If you're here, then I can answer any of your questions live. So in this broadcast, I'm going to share with you some really key, critical things that I've learned about pricing, many of which I didn't learn from life coaching, and in actual fact have really helped. Our coaching business is now a multi-six-figure coaching business, and many of the things that we're now doing around pricing have nothing really to do with the coaching space whatsoever. They're actually to do with how the rest of the world prices. That's a big mistake a lot of people make straight away with their offer in coaching, is they think that they've got to price it based on maybe what they think it's worth. In actual fact, if you look at the world will tell you everything that you need to know about pricing. And I'm going to share with you lots of real life examples today, things that you can apply in your own coaching business. Good afternoon. Andrew Duffy is here. Hi Andy, hope you're well in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Amazing, great to have you here. Hafiz, great to see you here as well. On today's show, we're going to be talking about pricing for your coaching. If you are currently a coach, trainer, consultant, expert, and you have a business that is charging exactly what you feel that it's worth, you're making exactly the kind of money that you want to make, then this broadcast might potentially not be for you. However, if you are a coach, trainer, consultant, expert, author, and you want to, you feel that you're not getting what you're worth, you feel that your business isn't making the kind of revenue that you want, then in this broadcast I'm going to share with you some really key things that I've learned about pricing specifically for the coaching space. So first thing that I want to kind of get out of the way is about price beliefs and myths. So we've all heard the cliche, money doesn't grow on trees. And there are lots of cliches like that. Many cliches sit kind of underneath the surface, or as we would say if we were getting all technical, in our subconscious mind. I learned this from a good friend and mentor of mine, Mr. Matt Elwell, who said, one of the things we have to be really conscious of when it comes to pricing, forgive me for his use of language, but I think it's appropriate, is you've got to be really aware of, and you may want to write, in fact, you should write this down. If you take nothing else away from this broadcast, I think this will really help you. You've got to be really aware of what he calls your shitty little money pattern. What does he mean by shitty little money pattern? Well, what he means is, in my sense, I grew up on a council estate in Birmingham where my mum was a single parent, hardworking single parent, and I grew up saying, Mum, maybe next time can we insert whatever thing I knew I wouldn't be able to have that day, because my mum was not in a financial position to do so. So I grew up with this, maybe next time can I... And so I grew up with a shitty little money pattern that also my mum grew up with, that said, I can't have certain things now, and with a real opposite of abundant mentality. And if you read Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they are brilliant books to really help to change any shitty little money pattern that you may have. I also recommend a course by Ken Honda called Money EQ. It's on the Mind Valley platform. Phenomenal book, which is really about the spiritual way of helping you to see that money is really just pieces of paper that really are irrelevant. They're useless until you use that piece of money. Let's pretend that this ridiculously fluorescent post-it is a piece of money. It's a £50 note, and I gave it to Andrew and said, Andrew, I want to give you that. Then there will probably be the assumption that there is an exchange, there's an energetic exchange of value that's going to happen. And as long as what Andrew is providing me is worth more than that, or at least equal to that, that is just an energetic exchange. One of the things I've learned is that we're all spending money all of the time. Even those people that don't have a lot, even just bare essentials, we're all spending money, right? We're all spending it, investing it, using it. We have to use it to exchange it for something else of value that we want or need. And so one of the key things that I've learned about coaching is a lot of coaches have a shitty little money pattern that they don't actually believe that coaching is worth maybe the high figure that they think it is worth. So for example, I had a coaching client who, well, before he was a coaching client, we had a consultation. He was struggling to sell his coaching. And I said, do you have your own coach? Like right now, are you paying for a coach right now? He said, no, I can't afford to. I said, so the challenge you've got is you're not paying for the thing that you want to sell. And the world energetically, going a little bit woo-woo on you for a second, the world can feel that, right? If you're a personal trainer and you're preaching about nutrition and then you're eating donuts all the time, then your clients will see it, right? They're going to see that because you're not in the best shape. So the point is, that I want to leave you here is beware your shitty little money pattern. That's Matt Elwell, that's not me, but it's an amazing thing. Most people have really, this is a blind spot for them. So you really want to check in with that. Highly recommend Ken Honda's course called Money EQ, because it really, I've had to really work on my shitty little money patterns growing up on a council estate in Birmingham to now have a 6-figure business. There was a lot of old shitty little money patterns, feelings of unworthiness, I'm not worth that, all this kind of stuff had to be like ironed out for me to achieve that. Something else to talk about, I've just got notes here that I'm just going to kind of reel off for this episode. Something else to consider with pricing is this thing called perceived value. And put a yes in the chat if you'd agree that in the world today, if something costs more, we generally have an opinion that it must have a higher perceived value. Put a yes in the chat if you agree with that. For example, 2 sports cars on a forecourt in a car dealership. They look exactly the same. One of them has a price tag that says £200. The other one has a price tag that says £20,000. If you're listening live, put in the chat, which car do we perceive is better of the 2 cars? Well, I already know that even if you kind of said, but what it, like, you could get into it and get intricate about it. It's got the wrong price tag on it if they look identical. Hafiz has said, right, the £20,000 car will be perceived, doesn't mean it's better, but it'll be perceived that it's better. Why is that? Because we've been raised in the Western world, at least, to think that things that cost more are better. Richard Pike agrees as well. Hey, Rich, good to see you, brother. Hopefully see you tomorrow. So why is that important when it comes to your coaching? Well, it's important because it presupposes then that if you charge very low for your coaching, as a lot of coaches do, it will be perceived as a very low value. So when I first started selling coaching, it was like £50 an hour. Lo and behold, I struggled. Then when I started selling it for hundreds of pounds, slightly less people were cancelling and more people were more committed. And then when it turned into the thousands, lo and behold, all the clients were, and in our academy that we have now, they're all doing the work because they've paid a significant amount of money. So they're investing more energy. So the higher the perceived value, the more energy people are like to generate. You know, when you look at holidays online, right? You see a holiday all inclusive that costs £5,000 and one that's next door that costs 2,000. If money is no object, most people will choose the 5,000 because there's a perception that it's probably going to be a better experience. So perceived value is a really important part, just in case you're thinking, oh, I don't want to price it too much because there's certain people that I want to offer it to, and if it's too much, I won't be able to help them, right? That's what group programs are for, so that you maybe can do it in more of a membership platform. That'll be a broadcast for another day. So perceived value, really important. Another thing to think about, contrast. So you want to write this down, contrast. In my early days of my coaching business, I was selling sales training to gyms. So I go into a gym, provide them with some training with a promise that they'd be able to get more members through the door. One of the meetings I had with a CEO of a gym chain, sat down, had a conversation, then we had another conversation. That's the corporate world for you. Then we had another conversation, and eventually I got an email saying, you know what, Miles, we've decided we're going to go with someone else. And I was gutted. I'd invested so many hours in the proposal and this kind of stuff. So I basically said, can I ask for feedback? Why did you choose the other person? And they said, well, we actually thought that you were probably going to be better, but then their price for their offer was a lot higher than yours. So we just thought yours probably is going to be a bit more diluted and theirs is going to be more in depth. When I know that I was going to give them the full bells and whistles, right? I think I was going to charge for a particular training 500 quid, and the other provider was charging more like 4,000 or something. They gave me a bit of a hint as to what it was going to be. So I was gutted. I was like, why would they choose the 4,000 when I'm cheaper? Goes back to this thing I said, which is called perceived value. So that taught me a very valuable lesson. And in fact, when I had a conversation with one of my mentors several years later, a guy called Dan Bradbury, I learned a very important lesson about contrast. Dan said to me, Miles, when you price your offering, find something that your ideal client already spends money on and position your price relative to that thing that they already buy. So what he meant by that, and I'll just tell you how I applied that to get to the point, is when I then was in the next situation proposing an offer to a gym chain, I looked online to find out like how much it was for the average treadmill, how much it was for the average cross trainer. And because I've been into their site, I actually found the model numbers of the pieces of the cross trainers, the treadmills that they got. And I went online, found them out. I think the cross trainer was like 11 grand. It's ridiculous considering they got like 15 of them. And I know that they released some of them, but the fact is each one was worth 11 grand, right? So I then, the next time I sat down to propose a pricing with that particular chain, is I proposed my offer and said, so my price for this piece of training is 6 grand, and here's why. I said, I know that you've got 15 cross trainers, and I know whether you buy them or not, the value of those brand new is £11,000. I know that my training for basically half that is going to generate a greater return on investment than all of those cross trainers will combined, let alone one. And it was saying it in that way that landed that deal. That invoice was paid 3 days later, did the work, the rest is history. And I feel like, I know I said at the beginning, if you took nothing else away other than the first thing I said about Shitty Little Money Patterns by Matt Elwell, but actually, if all you took away from this broadcast was about contrast. I was in a mastermind group a couple of weeks ago. I may have shared this in a broadcast 2 weeks ago. And there was someone in the program and she was like, I don't know what my audience are buying. Her price point for her thing is like 1,800 quid. And I said, well, what could they be buying for £1,800? And she straight away went, a holiday. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good one. I said, will COVID aside, would they spend money at least once a year on a holiday? She was like, yeah. I was like, so that holiday is something that they perceive is going to be a really relaxing, good for them. Like, what are all the feelings they're going to get from the holiday? And she's like, feel good, relax, less stressed, all this kind of stuff. And I said, what are the benefits that they'll get from your thing? And she was like, well, all of those things, but more importantly, this problem that they've got is going to go away forever. I was like, so they're going to have to spend £800 every year to mask over for 1 week a problem that's still with them 51 more weeks of the year. And she was like, yeah. I was like, so when you put it that way, it actually shows that the investment for what you do is actually cheap. And she was like, yeah, you're right, it is. So look at what your ideal clients are spending money on, work it out. It's even if you go, well, my ideal clients don't buy holidays, then think about what are they spending money on. And if you add it all up, even just the basic things like the mobile phone, there's probably things on the food shopping they don't really need. There will be things that they're buying that all adds up every year to thousands of pounds, which probably won't give them as great a return on investment as signing up to your coaching program, which, if you know, works and does get great results, will be far greater return on investment than all those things that they're spending money on that maybe aren't bringing them the same emotional return on investment that they think that they're going to bring. Something else to think about is this thing I call result speed. There is a reason why a gym membership costs £20 a month, and surgical treatments like Botox and liposuction, not so much today, they're a little bit more mainstream now, but 20 years ago those things were in the hundreds if not thousands of pounds. And I know there are certain things like tummy tucks and things like that, facelifts, which can still cost thousands of pounds. The reason why people spend thousands of pounds on those type of treatments but not on a gym membership is because of this thing called result speed. What do I mean by result speed? Well, people want to know when they're going to get a result. The mistake a lot of people make with their coaching is they're just selling coaching. People need to know, well, when am I going to get the result by? There's more people signing up for 90-day transformations than there are just a gym membership. Why? Because they want to know they're going to get a result. Me and my wife have just signed up to a photo shoot in 8 weeks' time. And because I know that I have 8 weeks to get in really good shape, I now have a clear goal. But most people don't do that. Most people don't set themselves those type of targets. So you have to do that for them. So you have to communicate with your coaching as to when your client can expect to see a result. In our program, we give you 12 session scripts so the person can expect to see transformation in 12 weeks, or if they do it over 12 months, for example, they can expect to see a massive change in their energy, their productivity, their relationship with those they love. They'll have more clarity of thought than ever before, and so much more than that. More confidence, more courage, so much more when people go through our elite performance coaching program. By the way, if you're watching live, we have our next training this Saturday, August the 6th. There are 9 seats still remaining for that. Should be a link somewhere in the chat. So, result speed, really, really important thing to consider. And the last thing I want to kind of talk to you about is just a thing that I kind of looked up online about Tony Robbins, who is perceived as kind of the world's #1 in the coaching space, charges £1 million per client for his one-to-one coaching. Not only is there a waiting list, he makes people jump through multiple hoops to even get close to having a coaching call with him. In a future broadcast, I'll talk about, well, if you reverse engineer everything that Tony Robbins has ever done, how has he got to that point of £1 million per one-to-one client? I'll reverse engineer, because there are a lot of elements of that which you can actually apply even if you're just starting out. But it's just something to consider, that if Tony Robbins can charge £1 million, there was obviously a point where he couldn't or he didn't, So what has he done historically over the years to put himself in a position where he can do that? In a future broadcast, I'll sell that. I'll teach you about that. And last thing I want to say is, goes back to the result speed thing, is to remember, people don't really want to buy coaching. What they want to buy is a result. So I'd argue people don't really want to go on holiday. They want to escape the weather that they maybe are existing in, or they want to break from the home. So it's not really a holiday they're after, it's a result. People don't really want to join the gym. They don't want to spend endless hours slogging on a treadmill. What they want is a result. People don't really want driving lessons. What they want is to be able to pass their test, so they've got the freedom to not have to get on a bus or a train. They can instead have a car and pick up their girlfriend when they're a teenager. Maybe that was just me. So, key thing that I want to leave you with, common sense but not necessarily common practice, is remember, don't sell coaching, sell a result. I hope you've enjoyed today's broadcast. If you have, let me know if you've still got questions and you're watching this on the replay, put a question in the chat. There should be a link in there to book on for our next certified coach training this Saturday. There are 9 spaces remaining at the time of this broadcast. Any questions, comments you like, put them in the chat. Feel free to share the broadcast, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out. Take care.